Coming live from our studios in Belize City, this is the evening news on Love Television for today, Tuesday, June 28. To get you started, we take a look at the top stories for today. Police investigators in the Toledo district have charged 2 men for murder while they continue to probe into the recent killing of a BDF soldier. As investigators look into these incidents, Commissioner of Police speaks of the weak police presence in southern Belize. Agencies collaborate relief efforts for the fire victims on Ambergris Key. Director of Public Prosecutions issues a statement on the heels of discontinuing the charges against the Santa Cruz 13, and 11 years after finding oil, we'll tell you what the Belize Natural Energy has been up to and where they are headed. Police in Punta Gorda are laying charges against 2 men in connection with a recent murder in that municipality. We join our Toledo correspondent, Paul Mahong, who tells us more.
2 persons were charged with murder in connection with a recent murder incident in Poite Village in Toledo. Officer in Command Toledo Police Formation Assistant Superintendent of Police Clement Cacho confirmed that of 4 persons detained in connection with the incident, 2 were taken to Punta Gorda Magistrate Court where they were read charges of murder by Magistrate Emerson Bunner.
Reference the chopping death of Mr. Francisco Ack that occurred on 18 June 2016 at San Bonito Poite Village in the Toledo district. Punta Gorda Police has formally arrested and charged 1 Gilberto Koch, 19 years, date of birth 21st February 1997, Belizean farmer of San Bonito Poite, along with 1 David Tosh, 18 years, date of birth 29th October 1997, Belizean farmer of San Bonito Poite, jointly for the charge of murder of Francisco Ack. They have been formally arraigned before the court and have been remanded into custody until 17 August 2016.
ASP Clement Cacho. Francisco Ack lived with his wife and 5 children in San Benito Poite Village, located 42.5 miles by road of Punta Gorda in rural Toledo. Reporting for Love News, Paul Mahone, Punta Gorda.
Last Sunday, we told you of a body found on the coastline at the center of Punta Gorda town. Since then, investigators have identified the body as being that of a Belize Defense soldier. As we hear in this report from Paul Mahong, investigations are underway into the circumstances.
Police in Punta Gorda continue investigation into an incident treated as murder. The lifeless and partly decomposed body of 27-year-old BDF soldier Orlando Rush was found on the seashore location in between the Punta Gorda Big Wharf and Market Wharf in the central section of town. Officer in Command Toledo Police Formation, Assistant Superintendent of Police Clement Cacho, said that the incident is treated as homicide.
Reference the decomposed body that was discovered on Sunday the 26th June 2016, sometime in the morning. A post-mortem examination was conducted later during the course of the evening and into the night by Dr. Ken. The body was removed from the scene and taken through the VOA road in a secluded area where the examination commenced. At the conclusion of the examination, the doctor certified the cause of death to be facial blunt force traumatic injury. The body was identified as Orlando Rush, 27-year-old BDF soldier of San Felipe Village, Toledo District. As a result of the post-mortem examination, this matter is being dealt with as a homicide.
After the post-mortem, wife Orlinda Rush confirmed that the body of her husband, BDF Private Orlando Rush, was laid to rest Sunday evening at the Punta Gorda Cemetery. Reporting for Love News, Paul Mahone, Punta Gorda.
Last week, there was a murder in San Benito Poite, a village in the Toledo district. And we just told you that over the weekend, the partially decomposed body of a soldier was found. When it comes to the presence of police officers, The Commissioner of Police concedes that there is need for improvement in this southern district, particularly given the number of villages that make up the district. Working with the human resource currently available, Commissioner Wiley explained how things presently function.
The police did respond the night, but it is a remote area, difficult terrain. As you see across Belize, because of the length and breadth of Belize, we have many remote villages, and we have substations in some areas, and where we have those substations, one substation perhaps could be responsible for as much as 10, 12 villages. There are areas that we do not have substations, and a lot of those areas, especially in the Toledo district, when the request for assistance come, the response would normally come from the head station, especially an incident where it was reported someone had been chopped and had died.
Wiley also spoke about the difficulties and challenges that the police face in policing the southern district.
Country will be able to build a police station and place a police in every village, because sometimes, I know villages sometimes spring up like that, and so there has got to be analysis done in terms of population, the level of crime, the level of reports, and so on, and those are sort of things that we are guided by in terms of when we make recommendations for new police stations to be built. We are at the stage where the type of structures we build the one-man police station should be a thing of the past, because it's difficult for one officer to police any village, more so when they have 5, 6, 7, 8 villages. There's also the issue of mobility for those officers that also needs to be addressed. So there's a whole number of factors we've got to consider when we make those kind of recommendations.
Wiley stated that the police are looking at various forms of improving the capacity to police the district. After the destruction of several homes and businesses on Ambergris Key in Monday morning's fire, relief efforts are underway on the island through the provisions of meals, clothing, shelter, and other supplies. The Belize Red Cross has been activated since yesterday with supplies and manpower sent out to the island to assist in the efforts. Love News spoke with Jeroni Timrose Augustine, the Belize District Emergency Coordinator for NEMO, who explained what progress is being made.
We are cleaning up. There are volunteers on the island, all the way from PG, also mainland PG. We have volunteers that are on the ground doing the cleanup effort. The fire department has given the clear for people to go into the canteen. So the cleanup effort is going very well. We have enough hands, and also in terms of relief, we have community members, hotels, restaurants assisting us with accommodations and food. And let me see, and donors also. We have donors coming forth with financial donations. And in terms of coordination, we have the Belize Red Cross, we have Lions. NEMO is only assisting in this process at this moment with the coordination of all the relief activities. So that is basically what we are doing right now on the ground. So far, everything is going well. We have a smooth operations in our emergency operations center. And in terms of more relief that people would like to give, we are asking for financial assistance and food, non-perishable, of course. No more clothing, though. We do not need any more clothing. We are overwhelmed with clothing.
In a release coming out of the Emergency Operations Committee activated by NEMO San Pedro, it states, and we quote, "The EOC would like to emphasize and advise that all financial aid for the San Pedro fire victims is officially being channeled through the San Pedro Lions Club, Fire Relief Fund, and the San Pedro branch of the Belize Red Cross. The Atlantic Bank account number is 211-382-902. The EOC is asking all members of the public to discontinue from creating individual fundraising profiles, since it will only open the door for confusion and unaccountability. The EOC has been working very closely with all the NGOs, social partners, tourism stakeholders, local and national governmental organizations to ensure that all efforts are being properly coordinated. This is to ensure that all those affected by the unfortunate fire are being given equal assistance. For further questions or information, please call the EOC Command Center at telephone number 226-4458, and we end the quote. Yesterday, the case against the 13 Santa Cruz villagers was discontinued by the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Punta Gorda Magistrates Court by Chief Magistrates Anne Marie Smith. On the heels of the discontinuation, the Toledo Alcalde Association issued a release stating, and we quote, "This morning, the Director of Public Prosecutions discontinued the charges against the Santa Cruz 13. The Director also confirmed the state had no intention to lay charges against the accused in the future. The Maya Leaders Alliance welcomes this decision and congratulates the Director for acknowledging the innocence of the 13 accused, who, along with their families, suffered incalculable hardships as a result of their arrest and prosecution. This was never a case about the difference between Belizean and Maya customary law. This was always a case about the constitutional rights of poor people in Belize and whether or not officials would respect the rule of law. Today's decision is a victory for everyone who finds themselves on the right side of the law but on the wrong end of an access to justice problem." While Mr. Miles' actions were wrong, it is important to note the CCJ order did not take away rights from other citizens in Belize. What the CCJ order did was to place additional responsibilities on citizens, government, and private companies to consult with and obtain ongoing consent from Maya villagers before engaging in any activities in any village. The requirement for consent is not a new idea in Belize. It is similar to the protections given to leaseholders into whose homes third parties cannot enter or remain without permission. The land right cases lay the foundation for a renewed relationship between us all. It is the earnest hope of the Maya people that we can recognize our differences in a way that brings us closer together, and in so doing, build a more beautiful future for all Belizeans. We end the quote. The case against Rupert Miles came about in June 2015 when he began construction on Maya lands. Citizens Organized for Liberty Through Action COLA has issued a release entitled, "Must Working Belizeans Pay for Government's Economic Incompetence?" The release begins by questioning the selling of shares. It reads, and we quote, "For what reason, we ask, is government seeking to sell to the Social Security Board $55 million worth of shares in Belize Telemedia Limited, for which it has not finished paying, and Belize Electricity Limited BEL, which recently and unsuccessfully tried to raise customers' electricity bills." End of quote. We sat down with COLA's president, Giovanni Brackett, who spoke of the elements of the release.
We question right away, why is it that government is seeking to sell to a Social Security Board $55 million worth of its shares within BTL and BL, majority being in BTL. They claim that the letter from the Ministry of Finance to the SSB states that, reminds the SSB that it is always looking for good investment, and that, remember, the interests that they have made before in other previous investments. But we question that because we feel that that is not rational enough for us, enough reason for you to sell me $55 million worth of shares. And what makes it even more alarming is the fact that Social Security Board is a statutory instrument and it's a governmental creature. So whichever way you looked at it, colloquially, it's government selling to government. And that is like me as a husband coming to sell my shares to my wife when both of us own the same company, because I didn't want to tell her that I spend the money out on sweetheart, just to use that expression that people may understand. So for us, there's not a strong reason or a sufficient reason why this purchase is required.
Brackett goes on to speak of an economic meltdown, a consistent downward trend in exports, and a consistent increase in imports, as well as unemployment.
Another thing coming back, what we looked at is that also that what rose a lot of alarms is that according to SSB own website, that Anwar Barrow is chairman of BTL. According to when you look at the website, is that Anwar Barrow is chairman of BTL's executive committee, and is also a government representative on board the SSB board. And Mr. Ned Vasquez, the BTL's chairman, is also chairman of the investment committee for the SSB. And we question if this is not a direct form of conflict of interest. I am certain in other territories this would not be acceptable by any stretch of the imagination. You cannot sit on two separate boards, and if that is the case, then we want to question, did they recuse themselves from voting? And what also brings to our attention is that it's not even 6 months into this government's first term and in its first quarter of the current fiscal year, and we're already seeing signs of economic meltdown. Exports consistently are down, and imports consistently up. So we're importing more, and unemployment and underemployment are stagnant, especially in certain sectors of the economy and in the country.
With all these highlighted points, the release closed with several demands, including the halt on the sale of SSB shares.
When we looked at it, we came out with a very strong press release today calling on several things. So we at COLA is calling for an immediate halt on the sale of these shares to any entity, notwithstanding the decision taken by the SSB board and the consideration of this sale. There should be public consultation with the entire public in each district, where the government outlines specific purpose for which these funds are to be used and whether they will be kept separately. You want to know if there will be separate accounts and how will these money be spent. If it's going to be used for salary, then just tell us that you're short of money, the government is cash strapped, and they need money to pay workers. We would prefer you come clean like that than to give us an impression that actually things are good and this is just a good sale. Pensioners should be consulted especially and be given a vote after having been made aware of the pros and the cons. In fact, they are the ones who are going to be most to benefit or to lose at this. The government must also report the true state of the Belizean economy, and if the government coffers has dried up, we should be known. If we are in an economic crisis, GOB needs to come clean. The trade unions and other representatives on SSB board must also speak up.
Brackett added that COLA, being a grassroots organization and social partner, was never consulted on any of the decisions that have been made. Two agencies in Belize with a focus on women and children recently conducted a media sensitization workshop on sexual offenses and responsible reporting. We join Rene Trujillo for that story.
The reports coming out of the Belize Police Department as the only source of information would prove inaccurate when it comes to determining just how prevalent sexual offenses have become in Belize. Majority of these cases are done against vulnerable persons, ranging from young girls and boys to those with special needs and those who have limited means to survive. Saturday, June 25, saw the National Committee for Families and Children, along with the National Women's Commission, holding a workshop geared at sensitizing the media on these offenses and the importance of responsible reporting. Attorney Baja Schumann sits on the Policy and Legislative Committee for NCFC. She spoke of sexual offenses and the importance of this sensitization session.
It's the act of touching, penetrating, or any kind of activity that is sexual in nature. There is provision for those types of activity under the new amendments to the Criminal Code, which would protect persons, not only females now, but we're looking at persons. So a sexual offense is an offense which is sexual in nature. It looks at touching of another person or having that person touch you in a sexual nature, whether it's through penetration or whether it's touching of the body part with the intent for it to be a sexual nature, looking at the anus, the vagina, the penis, and it also includes the mouth. Well, one of the goals that we were looking at is to have the reporting a little bit more child-friendly or child-protective. It is to ensure that the media understands the sections or the amendments to the law, and to also ensure that when reporting it, the protection of the child is of the paramount interest, because when reporting it without realizing it, sometimes in reporting certain situations, the identity of the child is revealed, or certain information about the child that can have an after effect. So in allowing the media to understand what the charges are and what the law provides for, it can also look at reporting it, and there will be a section which deals with the different terminology that's better to use in terms of reporting again on crimes where children are involved.
While the workshop was aimed at sensitizing the media, Attorney Dolores Balderramos Garcia, who has served as Minister of Human Development, Women and Children, took the opportunity to challenge the media in following up on key areas of enforcement, including the presence and maintenance of a sex offenders registry.
We also felt that we should put something in the amended criminal code, and that is when we pushed for the register. It wasn't supported by everybody, but I can tell you that Honorable Patrick Farber and myself at the time, we were both very much advocating, and I am happy to say that there was certainly bipartisan effort in that regard, and certainly where it comes to issues of the protection of children, I think we have had a good history of acting together. Now, I do know, as we said in the forum, that it's on the law book. We don't know if the police are implementing it, but that is something that you can look into, and I would invite the media to look into that aspect of it.
Attorney Schumann says that it is important that the laws be enforced in Belize. As it relates to the news reporting aspect of sexual offenses, there are provisions in the law for media houses to be penalized.
There is currently provision in the law where, in terms of the reporting, the media can be held accountable for the reporting. For example, in the instance where inadvertently or intentionally, we would never really know that the identity of a minor who was charged with a crime or who is the victim of a sexual offense, their identity has been published by the media. There is provision where a fine can be imposed on the media. The problem is who then reports that crime? Who is the one that takes that crime to the court to say, well, you need to be held accountable for that. And that is where there has not been a lot of enforcement, but there is a provision, and the penalty is a fine.
The media sensitization workshop was a 6-hour session hosted at the IT Vets training room, with presentations being done by the Executive Director of the National Women's Commission, Anne-Marie Williams, and Family Court Magistrate Danea Grant. Similar workshops have been had where officials from the Belize Police Department, Immigration, Labor Department, school counselors, and social workers were in attendance. Reporting for Love News, I am Renee Trujillo.
Sexual offenses can come in various forms, as Attorney Baha Schumann explained earlier. Child prostitution is one sexual offense that several agencies with responsibility for children are looking to combat. Brianna Williams of the NCFC Policy and Legislative Committee spoke of what child prostitution is and who can be held accountable in this area.
Child prostitution is an offense, and it's the act of giving or offering or promising a child money, anything, any gift, any remuneration for sexual activity. And sexual activity does not necessarily mean actual sexual intercourse, but anything that could be interpreted as sexual activity. So if you promise sweets for sexual touching, that's child prostitution. It could be anybody who is involved in the process of child prostitution. So it's not only the person promising the child any gift or money. It can be, like we discussed, it can be someone who owns a home who is renting to somebody who is facilitating child prostitution in the home. And if you are the landlord or you're the homeowner and you know that this is happening in your house, you could be charged. Also, it could be the middleman. So you approach someone and you can say, I know where you can get such and such from someone, and then you're the middle person and you take that person there, you can be charged. As of right now, to my knowledge, there have not been any prosecuted cases for child prostitution, especially under the Commercial Sexual Exploitation Act in Belize. However, under that same act, reporting is necessary. You are responsible to report if you know of this happening in Belize. Unfortunately, there can't be any case if there's none reported.
Another aspect of sex crimes is the issue of teenage pregnancy, particularly where minors are involved. Attorney Baha Shuman spoke of this matter, as well as the cases where two minors engage in unlawful sexual intercourse.
One of the things that would have to be is the reporting of the crime, the reporting that this child has been certified by a doctor to be carnally known. What happens is that there either needs to be the reporting by the parent taking the child into the police station, and then they're doing the other the work that needs to, the groundwork for that charge to be laid, whether the child themselves come in and report it, since you're talking about teenage pregnancy, the young girl, or when it is that the child seeks medical care at one of the health centers or at the doctors, reporting by that medical practitioner, because then a law has been broken then, because remember, under 16 years of age, you cannot give consent to sexual activity or sexual intercourse. The thing is, the age of criminal responsibility is 12. So at the age of 12, a child can be charged for a criminal act. However, the law as it relates to sexual offense states specifically that a person cannot consent to sexual activity or intercourse unless or until they are of the age 16 and above. So in that instance where you have both of them engaging in sexual activity or sexual intercourse, none of them are of the capacity to consent to the acts that are done. The law currently is silent on it, but it is something that would need to be discussed and further work would need to be done, because in that situation we're looking at a matter where none of them legally could have agreed to what was taking place.
Interestingly, even when a sexual offense takes place outside the borders of Belize, once collusion can be proven, the perpetrator can still face charges in Belize. Attorney Dolores Balderramos Garcia explains.
When it comes to the commercial sexual exploitation of children, if there is procuration, in other words, you're encouraging, you're enticing, even if the offense or the alleged offense, like say a sexual abuse of a minor, even if it would take place in Mexico, if the procuration or the preparation for it or the inducement happened in Belize and the arrangements were made in Belize, it no matter if it occurs in a hotel room in Chetumal. So what we're basically saying is that you're not taking over the law of Mexico, but you are saying that because our laws consider these offenses against children to be so serious, it doesn't really matter where it occurs once the procuration and the preparation and everything happened here in this country. So that you're not trying to take over Mexican jurisdiction, for example, but you are saying that we consider this to be an offense, and it can be tried in Belize, even though it took place abroad, because we are saying that it is so serious under our laws.
In the court of public opinion, sexual offenses, especially against children, should carry mandatory remand to prison. The justice system in Belize does not dictate such, however, as explained by Attorney Shuman.
In terms of looking at bail now, remember there's a presumption of innocence which each person has under the Constitution. So the only offense in Belize right now where you are not offered bail or you're not granted bail is the crime of murder. All other offenses, there is the provision to make an application either at the Magistrates Court or at the Supreme Court for bail. What happens then is that they take certain things into consideration.
they put in place conditions that would protect the virtual complainant or the victim or the person who was injured or hurt following the offense. No, so what they do is they put in place certain conditions, that you are to stay 100 yards or 200 yards away from the virtual complainant. You're not to contact any of the witnesses in the matter, and so forth. So there are provisions put in place to protect the persons who are also within the case, which will be heard before the court.
As it relates to other aspects of sex crimes, including child pornography and cyber crimes, the discussion has begun on the national level to establish policies and draft proposed legislation. Dr. Ronald Hyde is a Belizean nephrologist who is attached to the Arizona Southwest Kidney Institute and has found ways in giving back to Belize using his expertise. Love News met up with Dr. Hyde at the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital as he was attending to patients who are receiving kidney dialysis.
I was born in Belize, and I come from a family that I think has always been very socially conscious, and from a young age we were taught to try to help the country and help the society, and so it was a very natural thing to want to help. For a long time I didn't know how to help, and I was encouraged by my family to make contact with the Carl Huchner to find out if there was something I could do to be of help. And I did, and Dr. Longsworth at the time and Dr. Coe said, yep, we certainly could use your help, and so I've been coming ever since. I'm coming just about every 3 months at this time, and I see patients on dialysis, but most of the patients we see are people who aren't on dialysis. People who are newly diagnosed with kidney disorders, or people who have kidney disorders that we've been seeing or have been seeing the other nephrologist here in town, Dr. Contreras, who is on loan from Cuba. And the goal with them is to delay their progression, to slow down this process of kidney failure, to, in the best world, avoid the need for dialysis, but failing that, to make it happen more slowly so people can kind of enjoy their life a little bit longer before they have to deal with the inconvenience and the cost of being on treatments.
Dialysis has become necessary for persons whose kidneys can no longer function properly and can come as a result of several diseases ranging from diabetes to hypertension. According to Dr. Hyde, most people don't have early symptoms of kidney failure.
People who have diabetes, high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries are the people who are most often at risk of needing dialysis. And dialysis is done when the kidneys are no longer capable of cleaning the blood to the extent that it needs to be cleaned, and no longer able to balance the blood chemistries and no longer able to remove extra fluids. So when people come to dialysis, instead of blood circulating through the kidneys to have these things accomplished, basically the machine takes the place of the kidney, and now you're circulating blood through a machine to clean the blood, balance off the blood chemistries, and remove extra salt and water from the body. Most of the time, people have no warning at all. In some people, as I said, one of the jobs of the kidneys is to manage the amount of salt and water in the body. And so if people start developing swelling in their legs, it can be caused by heart or liver problems, but that can be an early sign that the kidneys are involved or malfunctioning in some way. But even when the kidneys are very low in function, they're able to maintain things so well, and people get so gradually used to their kidneys failing that people often have no clue that they have a kidney problem until they happen to get their blood tested. And that is why the health fair, for instance, that the Kidney Association does every year is so valuable, because by getting a blood test, you can tell whether your kidneys are in peril in any way. But unfortunately, people can go along until they're almost to the point of needing dialysis without knowing, and they could easily have known and prevented or delayed the advance of their kidney disease if they had simply gotten a routine, straightforward blood test.
Ford is from Nicaragua and has been working at the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital for the last 6 years. She shared with us some of the challenges faced by dialysis patients.
One is the not passing urine. Then most of them, like the most challenging one we have is those that do not know to control the intake of the fluid, because they're only allowed to take in like a liter per day. A liter means not a liter of water, but a liter of fluid. Mean if they're going to have like a cup of tea, that's including the liter. If they're going to have like a like 4 ounces of juice, that's included in the liter. Then when they would excess that, like maybe drink 2, 3, they would come in like definitely like a fish out of water. So then we have to deal with, as I mentioned before, Dr. Hyde said, we deal with like cleaning the blood and taking off the excess fluid from these patients.
Persons requiring dialysis are in need of sessions at least 3 times per week. A dialysis session can range from $200 to $400 per session. The Barrier Reef of Belize has been on the list of World Heritage Sites considered in danger since June 2009. The World Heritage Committee will be meeting in Istanbul, Turkey on July 10th to discuss the status of various World Heritage Sites, including Belize's Barrier Reef. This week, however, international attention shed light on the vulnerability of the Barrier Reef. A draft decision preceding the meeting in Istanbul, released on June 10th by UNESCO, hinted that Belize might continue on the endangered sites list. This is due to the fact that several deadlines to meet required indicators outlined by UNESCO have been missed, although the government of Belize affirmed its resolve to ensuring the continued protection of Belize's Barrier Reef system. 2 primary concerns are that the offshore oil ban announced last year still requires legislative support, and the offshore oil ban that was extended to 1 kilometer remains inadequate, since a spill outside the 1 kilometer ban could still compromise the heritage site. This year, the World Wildlife Foundation started a campaign to call for greater protection of the Belize Barrier Reef from harmful industrial activities such as oil, gas, and mining operations and large-scale infrastructure projects. Over 120,000 persons from all over the world have sent emails to the Prime Minister of Belize calling for better protection of the Barrier Reef. If adopted by the World Heritage Committee next month, this decision would send a message that more needs to be done, said WWF's reef scientist and climate change officer in Belize, Nadia Boud. The WWF calls for 2 urgent actions from the government for better protection of the invaluable reserve system that is the Barrier Reef. The recommendations are a full ban on offshore oil exploration and the adoption of revised mangrove regulations that serve to protect the Barrier Reef. 2 medical officers from the Ministry of Health and Carl Houston Memorial Hospital will be attending the 2016 workshop on chronic disease control in Taipei, Taiwan, from July 20th to August 2nd, 2016. Dr. Francis Murray from the Ministry of Health and Dr. Alexandrine Martinez will leave the country in mid-July to attend the sessions that aim to share Taiwan's experience on policy planning, practices system, and framework of chronic disease control. It will focus mainly on obesity-related diseases. In a release coming out of the government's press office, it noted that it is important for Belize to address these types of diseases since the number of persons being overweight or obese in Belize is high, and these can contribute to the development of chronic diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, cardiovascular disease, among others. The workshop will also deal with policy-making issues in order to assist attendants from partner countries in dealing with the chronic disease control. For this matter, the attendants will visit government agencies and medical institutions in charge of obesity prevention, chronic disease prevention, and chronic disease screening in Taiwan. It is the belief of both Belize and Taiwan that through this workshop, the prevention and control system on chronic disease in Belize will be well developed. There have been allegations from the public as well as media personnel that their rights were infringed upon by members of the police department. Those allegations are that police officers have demanded that they delete footage taken under the threat of confiscating their equipment. Commissioner of Police Alan Wiley responded to those allegations, saying that the public has the right to video or photograph any police activity as long as they are in public space.
I have no problem with the citizens taking photographs, taking videos of any police operation and activity. That is their right. It is to ensure that things are done according to procedures and standing orders. And I will again reiterate to the commanders, and I'll send out something in writing to them that I have no objection. People have the right to video their officers, and we don't have any right to take away people's recording. Whenever these things occur, I repeat again, I wish that it is brought to our notice. We'll have the professional standard branch investigate and look into these things, and where we're able to substantiate those kind of allegations, we'll deal with the officers because they've been told that they're not to engage in such practice and such behavior. If the officers are doing nothing wrong, then I see no reason why they would be concerned with anybody videoing them.
Wiley also gave public advice to journalists who feel their rights have been infringed, upon stating that he will take any complaints seriously.
What I would say to your journalist, as I've indicated, if he feels strongly about what occurred, he should put his complaint in writing, address it to the Commissioner of Police office. Once I get it, I will direct the Professional Standard Branch to carry out an investigation. Again, the officers are entitled to the same rights as any other citizens, and so we'll, of course, need to have independent witnesses to corroborate. But something of that nature, I'm certain that other persons may have been wrong, and with your influence, perhaps you'll be able to get some of those persons to step forward. And once we get those recorded, we'll deal with the officers once they were wrong. You have my assurance on that.
Although over the years, police and media personnel have bucked heads, a number of police divisions have made strides to have a smooth relationship with media houses. 8 Belizeans were honored for their dedicated and outstanding services to their community at a ceremony held today at the Belize House in the city of Belmopan. The insignias were presented by the Acting Governor General of Belize, His Excellency Carlos Perdomo, on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen. Receiving the insignia of a Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George was Mr. Michael Bowen for services to business and industry. Eleanor Hulse was awarded for services to education, and Dilcia Feinstein for services to business and the community. They both received the insignia of an Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. The insignia of a Member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire was given to Imelda August for services to nursing, Sarita Westby for services to education and the community, Juan Nunez for services to education and sport, Dr. Aaron Lewis for services to science, and Janet Gibson for services to environmental protection. A businessman of Santa Elena Town, Cayo District, has boosted the morale of the officers at the San Ignacio Police Station as he carried out his own recognition program of police officers who wear their uniforms proudly. 3 officers received commendations, namely Corporal Stephen Parham, Woman Police Constable Tracy Stephen, and Police Constable Francisco Cetina. The 3 police officers expressed gratitude for the recognition.
I must say that is a very good feeling. I'm very honored to be selected as the Officer of the Month, and likewise to be the well-dressed officer for the month likewise. I would just like to encourage my colleague to do the same, come out, do what is right, what is expected of us. My advice to the general public is to continue to work along with the police. When you see a crime or any wrongdoing occurring, feel free to give us a call and inform us as to what is happening.
Well, at first I got nervous, but now a good feeling of motivation for the work and dedication that I had put in. I can't say why I was chosen, but I come to work every day. When you love what you do, you come out and you put in your all, dedication, hard work, and my main focus is to serve the people of San Ignacio and Santa Elena. Put your all in whatever you do. Come to work, get the job done, be tidy on time, and you have to feel the love. You have to love thing.
I'm surprised because you never expect to get this. I know that I do my part as a police officer working in partnership with the community. And yes, like I said, I'm surprised and I'm really grateful for it.
Michael Salazar, who is an entrepreneur of the Twin Towns, spoke on what exactly he was looking for when he carried out his program of recognition.
I was looking for proper attire and how proudly they dress themselves, because the way you dress is the way you're viewed. And if you dress appropriate, then you get that kind of respect. So having them dress the appropriate way shows clearly that they're being very responsible, very professional, and they're proud to be a police officer. I was looking for, proper attire and the way how they looks. So if I was to have a complaint, is that maybe some of the shirt would have to be changed or upgraded.
Corporal Stephen Parham was also awarded as the Officer of the Month. Following yesterday's award ceremony, businessman Michael Salazar spoke to the media on his perspective of policing in the various communities.
Having them going out there on a daily basis, fighting crimes and being able to, or minimizing crimes basically, just to be careful and to follow procedures, proper protocols, because sometimes the department would come under fire if they would go too extreme in what they're doing. So they need to follow proper protocols and being able to go by the book so that we don't have to have situations where you have the victims out there complaining of police brutality or excessive force. So these are one of the things that we have to look at, that when we go there to conduct our duty, it is important that they do it the right way and they don't go excess. So it's something that we need to look at, and from what I was made to understand, that the department is having seminars where we have anger management, we have way how we can control situation, because sometimes when we deal with the suspects out there, they would have an attitude, and so if the officers are not trained enough to deal with that situation, they might overreact and end up in trouble with that victim or that suspect.
Pertaining to the Neighborhood Watch program, Salazar says it is important that all residents be a part of the program so as to mitigate crime.
Neighborhood watch groups are effective, and so if you are in an area and you don't have a neighborhood watch group conducting or managing your community, then we would advise you to join a neighborhood watch group that could be effective, because they come together and they send recommendations to the department, and in return the department work with the neighborhood watch groups effectively in reducing situations within different societies in this community. And from what I was made to understand, the Southern Nassau St. Helena have the most neighborhood watch groups, so hence the reason why the crime rate is down, because the community out there is doing their part as well.
Well, our thought conditioner for today comes from Marianne Williamson. It reads, and we quote, "As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence actually liberates others." End of quote. This has been the evening news on Love Television. I am Ernesto Vasquez, and we invite you to log on to our website at www.lovefm.com for transcripts of our news stories. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.